Yep.
Welcome to the Publishing Lounge. I'm Marcy Bond, your host, and today with me is Cassandra Ulrich and Molly Dean. They are both children's authors. We were also planning to have Elizabeth Parkinson's Bellows, but her child ended up in the ER, and so she's had to, obviously she's busy right now, and we will reschedule her, and she'll take a rain check, and I hope that her son is okay. I'm Marcy Bond. I am the founder and CEO of Wild Child Publishing and Freya's Bower. And you can find me on Facebook at Marcy Bond or Wild Child Publishing, on Twitter at Wild Child Editor, at Marcy Bond, and at Freya's Bower. I'm all over the place. And I would like to introduce you to Cassandra.
Hello.
And to Molly. So Cassandra, if you could introduce yourself, that would be awesome.
All right. So my name is Cassandra Ulrich, and I have a book with Marcy, and it's right above my head, Love's Intensity. I also have two other books out, New Adult Romance, Billiard Buddies, and the first one that I published, which was A Beautiful Girl, and that one's an inspirational teen novel. And the two other pictures that you see on the sides of me, there are two poetry books that I wrote. So I tend to attend open mics, and I read scenes from various of those books that I have there. And my audience is growing both in person and online, and I'm just excited to be here today with Marcy.
And thank you for coming. And Molly.
I'm also excited to be here today. I am the author of two books. One is middle grade fiction called The Twilight Garden, and it's based on a real garden that is actually out there. And I'm also the author of The Starcatcher, which is YA fantasy, and it's going to be a trilogy. I'm working on part 3 right now, and I have 4 more books under contract, and I live in the Northeast Georgia mountains, and I'm a nature and gardening fanatic. And I have lots of who are barred from this interview.
Lots of animals who are barred from the interview. One of my first interviews, or the first interview I did of some of our authors, one of the author's cats came through, and all you saw was this tail. Apparently he was walking across Matt's lap.
Oh my goodness.
So that was pretty funny. You saw that one?
That was great.
Nothing as entertaining as animals. So
That's true. I've locked both of mine out so they can't get in here.
Mine can come in, but they're not interested unless I have food. So they're all. I'm actually in our dining room. So, and now if I was sitting here with a turkey sandwich, they would be all over me. So I'm going to have a question. This is kind of interesting because both of you are children's writers, but you're adults, and I have considered writing children's books, but primarily because of my daughter, who is 11 and a half. And it just seems like, not that there is a dearth of material out there for kids, but more that there's like a gap between, even though they have tween fiction now, it still seems like there's a gap between, say 8 and 9 and then YA. You know what I'm saying? So we go from books that are maybe 150 pages to 500-page books. And she's reading that now. But at one point when she was about 10, the 500-page books were overwhelming.
Yeah.
And the 150-page books, that was like a snack. So I'm just curious how each of you got into writing children's books.
I think for me, some of my favorite books when I was growing up were children's books, and they stayed with me and they really inspired me. And I just wanted to create what I like, what I read.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm kind of like Peter Pan. I just never grew up, and I enjoy reading teen books, and I guess that kind of went into writing them. I enjoy watching movies about teens, shows about teens, and so, I just started writing. I enjoy it. I enjoy those books, and every once in a while I'll get into an adult book or even like a tween book. But I think I write basically what I enjoy reading.
So, Molly, the Star Catcher, that's a fantasy. And then the Twilight Garden is more of a coming of age. Am I correct?
It is. The Twilight Garden is it's based on reality. It's serious, really. The Starcatcher, it's an escape into another world. And that's what has always appealed to me. I want to escape to another world.
I do not think you're alone. Am I right, Cassandra?
I mean, true.
Part of the reason we read is that escape, the escapism of going into another world and imagining that we're a different person. And I think that's the same as authors. It's like we create these worlds, right? We create these worlds we kind of wish we could be part of, but only the good parts. Not the scary bad parts. Not the scary bad parts, just the good parts. But we'd love to have all of those abilities that if we're writing fantasy or some of the other ones, these abilities. Now, Love's Intensity is also, it's kind of I would say, I have a hard time saying urban fantasy, but it really kind of is because it's set in present day, but it has fantasy in it, but it's not really in an urban environment. So it's kind of one of those interesting, where do we put it novel, right?
And what's funny is when that story came to me, I wrote it as something that could happen just, next door, and added just enough where it could almost work that these people have telepathic interaction.
Right.
But yet, you don't really hear that happening a whole lot. You might hear a husband or wife, like they can sense something happening to their spouse across the globe, and or mothers with children. You kind of hear stories like that, and I kind of just expounded on that reality and made it more.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a lot of times. That's a lot of times what happens. So I'm posting the link again because we had quite a few people in, and we lost some of our audience. Thank you for those who are here with us. But I hope that we gain some more of our audience. So do you have anything in the works, Molly?
I do. Right now, I am in the revision process, editing of Blue is a Budding Color, and it is my first adult novel. And it's about a professor who mysteriously disappears on a cruise ship. And the idea has always intrigued me, vanishings. And his daughter, as a young woman, goes to the Caribbean to try to find it. And does she find it? We will see.
That sounds interesting. Now, is this more of a true to life, or does it have some fantasy in it as well? And welcome, Albert.
It is true to life. It does not have fantasy in it. It's sort of it's different for me, but I'm enjoying it. It's a challenge.
It's a challenge. Is this what
Yeah.
your muse said, okay, you're going to write this and the characters just keep talking to you?
That's what happens. Yes, it just came to me, and the character came inside my head, and they just took a life of their own. They seem to do that.
Yes, they do.
They
Now,
take over.
do any of your kids write at all?
Well, my granddaughter lives with me, and she is brilliant. She, from early days, she writes stories, and she's one of my best critics. Gives me a lot of input.
How old is she?
She is now almost 17.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
it's great, and she's also helping me with technology. She gave me a lot of pointers for this interview. I'm meant to be looking at the camera. I'm meant to be avoiding the double chin of that. That's something else. Oh, don't make faces.
I make faces all the time, and now they're out there for posterity on YouTube. And I've got to be SOL. Somebody will take a screenshot of it, and I'll be going, it'll be just that.
Oh no.
Do either of your sons write, Cassandra?
Only because we make them. My younger one, he likes writing about bodily functions. Like when he does write something that whether it's Pokemon, it's usually Pokemon doing something that boys enjoy doing in the bathroom or whatever, And I actually try to encourage him to write about like those superheroes because that's what he enjoys looking at, that's what he enjoys playing, and whether it's Pokemon or Superman or something, just writing a story that he likes. But if I can just get them to do it outside of teaching them, that would be fantastic. And now it's just me, and they keep asking me, what are you writing now, Mom?
Well, mine, writing is, for a while there, she was very interested in writing stories, and now not so much. She'd rather play Minecraft.
Okay.
She is not alone, though. There's a lot of kids who'd rather play Minecraft.
That's true.
And my husband, he's like, man, do you know how powerful that is? And I think he even set a Minecraft server up on our
Wow.
But it's not open to the public, and I don't think he's done anything with it at the moment. But still, he's like, man, they just go on and on and on. And some of the worlds she's been in, there's like 35,000 people, and
wow.
it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. But So, what else do you find that any portions of your life kind of filter into your writing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for Love's Intensity, some of it is wishful thinking, but some of it is who I am on the inside, and maybe I don't let him out. So Brad, for example, Brad is like my bad boy, and he does things like he loves riding motorcycle. He loves riding his horse fast. He just likes speed. And when I was younger, the only thing I'd ride fast was roller coasters. I love the Lamborghini. I know I'll never, ever be able to afford buying one, but Brad is that part of me that wants to go fast. I don't do that in real life because I can get you in a whole bunch of trouble, and I let him get through the trouble so that I don't have to.
Right.
And Cressa is the other part of me who is like, oh, let's try this. Because there was one time when I actually rode on the back of a moped with someone, and we were going up this really steep hill. He had to walk us up that steep hill, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to die today because I went on this thing. But I didn't quite put Cressa in that situation. She actually had fun on her first motorcycle ride. But yeah, it's just things like that I wish I could do, and I ended up writing my characters enjoying what people would probably look at me sideways if I tried doing in real life.
How about you, Molly? I know that you said the Twilight Garden was partially based on real life and based on the garden outside of your house. And I've seen pictures, just outside, I've seen pictures of your garden. It's absolutely stunning. But are there other parts of your life that make their way into your writing?
Oh, yes, very much so. It's sort of fragments of it. And the characters are not exactly based on people I know, but somewhat. One of the first things people always ask me that who know me, is that me in your book? Did you write about me or some incident we shared? They always want to know, was that it? And often it's a bit of it,
Right. I'm trying to think within I have a couple of stories, and some of the settings a lot of them settings are places that I've actually been, because I find it easier to describe something if I've already been somewhere. So like in Last Chance, that's all set in outside the foothills of Fresno, outside of Fresno, which is in the Central Valley near the Sierra Nevadas. And since I grew up in that area, that's my old stomping ground. So I can, you know what I mean? It's so vivid in my mind. It's easy to describe. So do you, well, obviously with the Twilight Garden, you did that. So how did you build the world for Starcatcher? Did you pull pieces of places that you've been, or did you just create a whole new world?
Well, I lived in England for 10 years when I was younger. And my favorite place there was the West Country, Cornwall and Devon. And I loved the coast and the coves and the blue-green water. And when I did the Starcatcher, that's what I'm really seeing, I think. Cornwall.
You're saying. This is kind of a funny story that you mentioned Cornwall. When I was in high school, I went on a choir tour, and we went over to England and Europe, and it wasn't with the school; it was with a different group, and so we stayed in people's houses, and I was in Truro, in Cornwall, and I had just met this couple that I was going to be staying with, and they had this little dog, and they're feeding this dog these biscuits, and they're not eating any of them. And then they turn to me and they say, would you like a biscuit? And I'm like, no, that's okay. I'm not hungry, because, because they're feeding their dog the biscuit. I'm thinking they're feeding their dog the dog biscuit, and then they're offering me the dog biscuit. Oh no, it's a cookie. We forgot. You Yanks call it a cookie. Anyway, it was. It was. We laughed pretty hard about that, but it was. I'm like, great, staying with a couple who wants to feed me dog food. That's awesome.
Too much.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. So I actually have an unfinished story that is set in Tahiti.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever finish it, but that's where my husband and I went for our honeymoon. We went to Tahiti on a cruise.
nice.
Oh, so wonderful.
And I want to go back, but I don't want to go back on a cruise. I just want to get one of those huts over the water and stay in one of those huts. I think that would be the perfect place to write.
I would think so. I would really think so.
Did
Did it look like, was it as beautiful as you expected, Tahiti?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, the water, I haven't seen any water like that, the different shades of green and blue. And I mean, even when it got really deep, it was like an indigo.
Mm.
And one of the things I'd really like to do is swim with the manta rays.
Wow.
Matter of fact, in that book, I wrote her swimming with the manta rays. Because, like you said, something that you want to do.
Yes, yes.
But what we should do is we should do the research in person and then write it off on taxes, because this is my business. This is what I have to do, right?
Well, I actually did that with the one of the books that I have in contract with you, Danny Ross.
Yes.
I actually went to one of the movies about Navy SEAL, and as part of my research, as well as read a book about a guy who'd been a Navy SEAL, about his experiences. So yeah, I mean, I was doing that so I would, not look like a fool writing about Navy SEALs.
Well, it was really interesting. On one of the last interviews, I think the last interview, someone asked how much research we did on books. And, I told them you'd be really surprised, even on a contemporary, if you're writing about something that is not necessarily your expertise, then it's going to require a certain amount of research. And sometimes even on just cars, like we'll have to go test drive a Lamborghini so that we know what it's... You gotta go test drive some of these cars just so we know, what it's like to sit in one or drive in one. Yeah. I haven't actually done that, but still.
I know.
I think it's a good idea.
Need someone who has one that could just borrow it for a little bit,
My husband was saying that he knew someone who had a friend who had a Lamborghini. And the friend let her drive it, and she went up into the Hollywood Hills on Mulholland.
Wow.
And a deer ran out in front of her.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm thinking, that car was probably totaled.
Oh.
But I think I'd be worried about that happening. See, here in LA, I could probably go to a dealership and test drive just about anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd like to test drive a Tesla. That would be nice. You can rent them too.
Oh.
Yeah, you can rent Ferraris, and Ruth says there's a loaner Lamborghini app.
Oh wow.
I think there should be. Oh, there should be a loaner Lamborghini app. You're right. There should be. You know what, though? I think I'd rather do it in person, right? Even if I were just driving around the parking lot.
Oh, my goodness. Like we have there's the car shows in Philadelphia, and I've gotten close to one. They won't even let you touch it. They put one of those, ropes around it. But I've gotten pretty close to a Lamborghini, at least to see what it looks on the inside. And I remember asking one of them, can I just touch the seat? And they're like, no.
No. Oh.
Just a little bit, Oh, wow.
Well, I wouldn't say quite a few, but I see them a lot more down here than I did where I was growing up in Fresno. I mean, sometimes maybe I'll see one a month or something.
Okay.
But there's Teslas everywhere.
In northeast Georgia, it's kind of a remote region, and we don't usually see them. I sure would like to.
I don't know if Georgia, I don't know. How much snow do you guys get there? Do you get very much snow?
Last week we had 7 inches, and it's sort of unusual, and we were snowed in for many days. And in Georgia, they really don't know what to do with snow. Everything just shuts down. And it's predicted Monday night, 18 inches. So that's going to be an
wow. Are you prepared?
I will stock up again. I was stopped at the last storm. But one good thing about it, you get a lot of writing done. Yes,
That's true. Oh yeah, Ruth said, "There goes the peaches."
Yeah.
That's true. Well, but you know what? California has a lot of peaches too. Even though you don't think of California as peaches, we have a lot of peaches in California.
Okay.
In the central, up where I grew up in Central California. When I come home from my mom's, there is this fruit stand that we'll stop at. Oh, Sub-Zero in Philly. 80s in LA, yes. Sorry, it's 80s here today. So one of the benefits of living here in LA is that it's 80 degrees.
Yeah.
But when I come home from my mom's in the middle of the summer, I will stop and there's a fruit stand where you can buy peaches that they have just picked that morning for like $1.49 a pound.
Mm.
And it's the peaches that you bite into and it drips down your face. You know,
Wow.
they're really, really good. I don't buy peaches at the store anymore. I just can't. I have to buy them sorry, my headset's bothering me. I have to buy them at a fruit stand or at the farmer's market. Primarily the fruit stand. Even the farmer's market can't compare to the fruit stand. So, well, all of those. So actually, you know what? That's not necessarily true because depending on how hard the frost is, the pit fruits really like the cold in the wintertime. So if they haven't already set their buds and they're not starting to flower, I mean, if they've, because they go dormant in the wintertime. So if they haven't started to bloom, then the trees are probably going to be okay. So if it's stayed cold enough there and you haven't had enough warm weather for them to start to say, hey, we can come out of sleep and start blooming, then they should be okay. Yes, no, you're shaking your head. Yes, no.
They should be okay, I think, yes. The weather, it's just been so crazy lately. Between the freezing spells, we had a really warm spell. So around here, you never know.
Yeah, well, we are, as she was saying, I think went Monday. Today it was 82 when I went outside.
Nice. We won't see that here until
and then it'll be humid, right?
Yes.
And then it'll be humid. So
everybody's sweating.
Ruth was saying that she was visualizing being in Maui when she was riding the Kona dog because it was the middle of winter.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a nice way to do it, huh? Now, does it snow where you're at, Cassandra?
Yeah, I'm in Jersey near Philly.
Oh, well, yeah, okay. So, yeah, you guys had the monster storm, right?
We had the blizzard, and it was funny because the day before, Ruth, the day before the storm, everybody that I talked to was like, oh, it's not going to happen. They said that before. They're exaggerating. And that morning, before that Friday morning, people were still saying that. And I said, I don't know. The numbers went from 1 to 3, then it went to 4 to 8, then it went to 10 to 12. It kept climbing as we got closer. And I went, I don't think they're kidding around this time. You guys need to just make sure you have, water at home, whatever. And then we all got snowed in. It was incredible. It was just, from a minimum, I think we had a foot outside our house.
Wow.
Snow, and that was the small snow. The people went up to like 18 inches and 24 inches. My sister, who lives in DC, she was snowed in for a few days. They didn't open up DC until that Wednesday. Government, had people come out to work. So, yeah, 2 feet. Yeah, it's a lot.
Well, can you imagine? LA's drivers are we have a hard enough time, not necessarily me, but a lot of people around here have a hard enough time driving without any rain or any snow. When it rains, it's the apocalypse is upon us.
Oh no.
And can you imagine if it snowed here?
Oh.
that would be well, I don't know what would be worse than the apocalypse. So
Oh goodness.
But I'm always I have people who kind of tease me because even though we don't get snow, I do keep my kitchen stocked just in case we have an earthquake.
Yeah.
And we haven't had a large earthquake in a long time, but I'd rather have the water and, some canned food and whatnot just in case, because unlike a snowstorm, we don't have any warning. So I try to rotate my canned food out so that that it's not botulism. So if we survive the earthquake, we don't die of botulism. So are you working on a new book, Cassandra?
I am. A few. It's funny, my brain doesn't focus, on just one story, but the one that is furthest along is about a South African girl who comes to America, and it's a book that deals with ethnic issues as well as parent-teen issues, boy-girl issues, but I think the one that might be even more edgy is Christian atheist issues. And yeah, so it's a lot packed in there, but
right.
And that's why it's taking so long, because I've been taking it to my writers group, and they've been helping me rake through it, and it has potential. It's just it's grown bigger than me because I didn't expect it to go there. It's one of those things where the characters kept talking, taking me down another path, and I went, wait a minute, where are you going? I didn't want to go down there. What are you doing to me? And because she's from South Africa, now I'm like, oh, I need to do research on South African and how mulattoes had to deal with, ethnic issues there. I knew a little bit about the apartheid, but not too much about how mulattoes fit into that. I know they had their own issues as far as not being accepted in either group. So and then our own national ethnic issues in this country, and her and her family coming into that. So, it's going to be something when it comes out, but it's going to take a while. And it's another, big series, kind of like Love's Intensity. Like they're both, multiple books. They're growing into that anyway, so it's taking a while. But I don't want to do with it like I did with Love's Intensity. I kind of stopped instead of going straight through to the end, and I'm trying with this book to kind of finish out the story and have it done, and then go back and edit. Whereas with Love's Intensity, I have like 800 pages that I haven't even fixed up yet. So I mean.
Yeah. Well, I know that in Love's Intensity, you also dealt with some of those, the racial issues as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely showing some of the prejudice that I think a lot of us would like to believe is not there. I don't think we see it as much in LA.
Right.
Just because, it's, I don't know. We just don't. I don't think we see it as much. Not that it isn't there, but just that we may not see it as much as some other areas that may not have the diversity that you see down here. Now, Ruth Zavitsanos was wondering when all of you write.
I write when I can find the time. I wish I could write as soon as I get up, mostly because sometimes I wake up and a scene pops into my head, but it doesn't always happen, so I have to wait until the weekend. I have a full-time 40-hour job, and then we homeschool our boys, so when I come home from work, I'm typing in what they did in the day, and so the only times I have to write are on a Saturday and a Sunday. So it makes it really hard when your brain doesn't stop thinking the scenes, but you can't sit down to actually write them out.
For me, it's early morning. If I can, I'm a really early morning person, and I try to fit in whatever my schedule is. I try to write every day, and then sometimes in the evening, if I can fit it in. But the between times are the hardest. But I'm busy.
What's early morning to you? Is it like 5 a.m.? Is it 7 a.m.? Is it 9 a.m.?
It's sad that it's 5 a.m.
5 a.m.
Yeah.
Wow.
Woo!
So what time do you go to bed?
Early. It's a lot, a little early. And I always have big plans, but I often doze off.
I know the feeling. Ruth says hers is also 5 a.m. my time. So does that mean you write at 8 a.m. your time then? Or I woke up at like 5:15. I mean, I was talking. So Ruth, I'm sorry, I was reading the sideline. She was saying, so she writes at 8 a.m. her time. Well, that's completely different. 5 a.m. my time and 8 a.m. your time are two different things. I'm wide awake at 8 a.m. I actually woke up at 5:15 this morning, and I considered going swimming, but I considered it. That's as far as it went. I went, okay. Too hot, boo-hoo. No, see, tomorrow I will swim at noon, and it'll be absolutely beautiful. So, and I had been swimming in the morning. I just wasn't motivated this morning, and I've got to get motivated again to start swimming consistently. So, and as far as me writing, I don't actually do that much of writing, even though I've had people tell me I need to write. So I'm usually too busy. I'm too busy editing and marketing and formatting and doing all of this other stuff. And I also homeschool my daughter. So. Yeah. So it keeps you. And we all have lives.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Ruth again was wondering if you guys do an outline. Do you get caught up with the word count? What exactly do you do?
I try to do an outline. I start that way, and the whole thing changes. It takes a life of its own, and it goes wild. But I always mean to do an outline, and I give it a shot. But realistically, it doesn't fit.
I only did an outline for Love's Intensity when it got to a point. I had actually thought up a lot of the story 2 months before I put anything on paper, and that was because I hadn't written anything before except for poetry. And I didn't know if I should bother. And so I talked to a few friends, and they're like, yes, go ahead. Well, then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm already taking these kids into college. And what did I think through all these scenes in these 2 months? So I actually did write down so I could keep my thoughts straight as I went back, trying to remember what I had thought up over 2 months. But other stories that I write, there is no outline. I basically just write as the story comes to me, and I fit the scenes where they make most sense, which is, I guess I wrote a couple blogs about being a pantster because I hadn't known what that term meant, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what I am. I just kind of write it and then figure out later where everything fits in. So that's me.
Do you guys write chronologically? Or so from one scene to the, or do you write different scenes and then, because that's what it sounds like what you're doing, Cassandra, is that you write these different scenes and then you put them together.
There is only one story, another story that I'm writing, which is like, I guess the time frame would be back when we used muskets. But that one, I tried to force myself to write chronologically just to do it for once, because other stories, I jump everywhere, and then it's like a puzzle I got to fit together. So that one, I'm like, no, we're not jumping around, and my brain doesn't want to listen, so I don't know how long that's going to last.
Right. What about you, Molly?
What?
Do you write chronologically?
Some books I do, and some I don't. They've been different, and it kind of surprises me. The Twilight Garden was all over the place. The Starcatcher just it flowed, and it was chronologically done.
All of the books I've ever written have always been chronological. So maybe that's just how I think. Yeah, or maybe that's just how it comes. And then sometimes what I find is that if I'm thinking, okay, now there's a scene that needs to be in here, and I'll start working on it, or I'll start moving toward that, and then the characters say, yeah, no, we're not going there. We're going to go over here, and this is what we're doing now. It's like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. That's not what I had in mind. We don't care. It's our story after all, and we're going to do what we think is best for our story. So, okay, well, and then if I try to force it, I find that everything just stops, and I can't really write. Or if I think, oh, it would be really cool if this were to happen, and I'll try to write that, and they're like, yeah. No. It may be really cool, but not in our story. Yeah. So that's kind of the thing. I have like a few ideas. I think the biggest thing that I have found with my daughter is that she really likes fantasy. And it seems like that a lot of the fantasy is written in the POV of boys. There aren't as many for girls. Maybe it's just I haven't seen them, but it seems like a lot of them are written in the POV of boys. And I'd really like to see more fantasy written in the POV of girls, so that we have some heroines, or even if it's a combination of girl and boy team that are friends, you know what I'm saying? Something that would be... I don't think she sees anything wrong with it. It's just that I would like, it's like, what are we unconsciously teaching the children? Right. I mean, like Harry Potter had Harry Potter, and then you had Hermione, and then you had, what's the other kid's name of the three?
Forget.
Anyway, pardon?
I forget.
I do. I can picture Ron. And of course Hermione was an awesome spellcaster, and she was one of the heroines, but she wasn't like the main character. So I guess that's what I'm saying, is I would just like to see more characters or more stories in the POV of girls that aren't I don't want to say trite, but that have more meat on them, and they're not all about fashion or something that's typically seen as girly.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? That she doesn't necessarily have to be a tomboy, just a normal girl who's neither tomboy or over the top into fashion girly kind of thing. And it seems like a number of them are more like that. It's either one extreme or the other. They can't be this a real girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's just me. She reads a lot. She loves like Percy Jackson.
Okay.
And Wings of Fire. She likes Ruth's books. She's a little young yet for yours, Cassandra.
Oh, yeah. I would not.
Although she might be right in with yours, Molly. So, she's 11 and a half. So that might be, she's getting to that point. So yeah, those are things that I would like to see more of. Is there anything that you feel like the children's books or the tweens or the YAs that you feel like there's not enough of in this genre?
For my son who's 16, we went to the bookstore, and been trying to get him to read books that I don't have to assign to him. And he stood in the teen section, and they were all girl heavy. Like the teens are just really geared toward girls. And so he was standing there looking at the covers, and he's like, I don't want any of these. So we went around on the other side and started looking at some of the adventure / fantasy type books. And he was like, maybe. So I ended up taking him to the adult fantasy area, sci-fi fantasy area. And there he found Star Wars fan books. And he's been reading like crazy. And he even asked me to go back a week later and bought 2 more, and they're like 300, 400 pages. But he actually took his own money. We went to the store and he bought 2 more novels. He's like, I really love this. So for him as a teenager, we had to go to the adult section just to find something that he enjoyed versus in the teen section. So, I think, that area, is missing. And they had things like Hunger Games. I mean, that was a girl point of view. And they had, what's the other one?
But Hunger Games seems a little, I mean, there's some stuff in there that I'm not sure if you'd want him to be reading.
Yeah, 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got pretty intense, So, and it's weird. It's in the teen section, not the adult section. But
Well, I think that's a very interesting point. So I have to wonder then, is it when the girls get into when the kids grow into teen, if more girls are reading and they think that less boys are reading. And maybe the real issue is not so much that boys aren't interested in reading, but that there's not enough books written for that audience.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And, it helped knowing what my son liked so that we could go to a part of the bookstore and, I showed him, I'm like, here you go, and he found something right away. He's like, oh my gosh, I love this. But because I know what kind of movies or topics he's interested in, I could take him there. But it's tough because, it's not every adult fantasy book that I want him to read. I read this sci-fi fantasy, but sometimes they get a little bit heavy on the bedroom scenes, and it's like, yeah.
Well, you know what? What I might suggest does he like fantasy, or is he more sci-fi?
He's more into sci-fi. He's definitely more into sci-fi.
Okay. Because I was thinking that one of our authors, Matt Campbell, his series, The Chosen of the Light, is really a YA fantasy, and it's from the viewpoint of he might be in his 20s or something, but he's not very old. And it's certainly there's moments where it gets a little scary, but it's not remotely, it's like a high epic fantasy. So it's not about, I don't think there's like a love interest or anything like that. So, if he's more sci-fi, this may not be something he's interested in. But then again, it might be because it's from a guy's viewpoint and not from a bunch of girls. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, Molly, we didn't give you a chance, or you haven't had a chance to say what you think is lacking in the genre and what you think there could be more of.
I know I'm always looking for something when I go to bookstores. Maybe I'm kind of in a time warp, but I'm wanting more things that we had perhaps when I was younger. That sounds, I'm getting a lot of, what's the word? Maybe tacky stuff, just superficial. But I could be wrong. But that's just my feeling.
Yeah.
Tacky is popular.
Yeah, I've seen some of those, and my daughter has read some of those, and that for the most part, I let her read what. Well, actually, I do let her read what she wants, because even if it's tacky, I feel like she's reading. But she's reading the Warrior series, and I've pulled out some more that I thought she might be interested in. And as I said, I think that she's ready for yours, Molly, and a few others that I think that we have published that she's ready for. But you're right. It's like they go for what's going to be easy to sell. And I understand that, because publishing really is a business. And if you want to stay in business, then you have to publish what people are going to read. But at the same time, you want stuff that's, maybe does more than just that. So there were a few there were a few series that she liked that every time she wanted to pick them up, I wanted to bang my head against the wall. And then just hope she'd get something else. But we've done stuff like, I've read some things with her, like one of my favorites, The Island of the Blue Dolphins, and Scott Odell, and I'd really like to, oops, Cassandra has disappeared. I'd really like to also read with her The Witch of Blackbird Pond. And
Oh, yeah.
some of these old classics, and maybe Little Women. Little Women was one of my absolute favorite books when I was her age. So, I mean, there's just some really marvelous books, and I'm sure there's some marvelous books now. I hope Cassandra can make it back in. So what you're saying is you want a little more meat in some of these books.
That's it exactly. Yeah. They just seem, just to hit the highlights, they seem kind of superficial.
Oh, we're going to let Joe come in. He's one of our authors. Just briefly, welcome, Joe. Give you an opportunity to see what it's like before you come in next week, and hopefully we can see him. There you are.
Hey.
Hey. Joe, this is Molly. I'm sure you've seen Molly Dean around. She's one of our children's authors.
Hi, Molly.
Hi there.
So are you just checking this out?
Yeah. I'm trying to familiarize myself with it.
Either the audio is not hooking up with the video, but that's okay. We'll get this figured out. And so are you on your iPhone?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. Sometimes. Did you have any questions for Molly?
No, I just like to listen in if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely. But if you want to listen in, you don't necessarily have to be on the video.
Oh, okay.
But you can certainly ask questions through this timeline. Not that I'm trying to kick you off. I'm just saying. Although, as you can see, you're probably not going to want to go someplace dark.
Yeah. No. All right.
All right.
Thanks.
But please listen in.
I will. All right.
And thanks for popping in, Joe. And there we go. And maybe Cassandra can get back in and we can get into the conversation again. I think it's very interesting. So what do you find is the hardest thing to do as an author? What do you think is the hardest thing to do?
Promoting. I'm so comfortable writing, but when I have to get out and say, buy my book and that sort of thing, I find it hard. I have to admit it.
I don't think you're alone. I think a lot of authors have a difficult time promoting their book. And I think some of this is because really as authors and writing is a solitary thing. Right? Oh, we lost her again. So, I mean, I think some of that. Authors are kind of maybe naturally solitary.
I think that's really true. It goes with the territory.
As being, unfortunately, we can no longer be hermits. And say, okay, here's my book world, come by, And there's certainly, yes, and it would be awesome. It would be really, really awesome. I did notice. Okay, please start UCAM. I think I noticed that you're on Google Plus, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
Well, how was I able to? You must have like a Google account or something, because I was able to tag you on Google Plus. And do you have a LinkedIn account too?
No, I don't. I have Tumblr. I have Facebook. I have Twitter, and my website.
And your website. Well, where can people find you?
Primarily my website, www.mollydean.com, and on Facebook, on Twitter, and Tumblr. And they can buy my books at the usual places: Amazon, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes.
So Facebook.com, is it Molly Dean? Is that your link? Facebook, Molly Dean?
Yeah.
Okay. And Cassandra, where can they find you?
They can find me at CassandraUlrich.com. It's my website. I also have a blog. I'm trying to think what specifically that is, and now I don't even want to leave this screen to go figure that out. My computer totally shut down on me. Totally.
Oh, we were wondering where you went. And then Joe came in. Joe Cristiano. He lives in New Jersey as well. He's near you and Jen. So I'm giving people the Twitter where they can find you,
right.
And then also on Facebook. Is it Cassandra Ulrich at Facebook?
I think it is. I have a fan page on there too.
Okay, you know what? I will go over and see if I can find you. Cassandra Ulrich, author.
Yes.
Is that you?
Yep, that's me.
Okay, so let me see. Yes. My child wanted to know if she could turn the TV on. So actually, it's Cassandra.Ulrich. I'm gonna put this in, and that's with Ulrich is with an H. So even though it doesn't sound like there's an H there, there is an H there. And of course, you guys can find me at wildchildpublishing.com, marcybond.com, MARCI, B as in boy, AUN as in Nancy. And you can find me at finallypublished.com. You can find me at Facebook under Marcy Bond, Twitter under Marcy Bond. I think I even have a Pinterest account, which I never go to.
Yeah.
I started it and it just kind of faded away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I have a Google Plus. I think you have a Google Plus too, don't you,
I do.
Cassandra?
Yeah.
And I have a LinkedIn account, which is also Marcy Bond. It makes it easy if you just keep it your name, and that way you don't have to try to put something out there. And I would like to thank everybody for coming. And thank you for listening in. And you will be able to, if you didn't see all of it from the beginning, you can go to my Blab account here, just Marcy Bond, and it will be there recorded. Or you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is, again, youtube.com/Marcy Bond. And you can subscribe to that, and it will be available there once we have finished up. And next week, we will be here again. I will be here again in the Publishing Lounge at 4 p.m. with Joseph Cristiano and with Patrick Royal. These are two horror authors. and I look forward to chatting with them. And actually, Joe made an appearance while you had disappeared, Cassandra. He popped in. He had his iPhone, and he was wandering around in the dark. And so all we saw was just a little bit of his face. So it was a lot of fun. And I hope you enjoyed our interview, and that you will subscribe to my channel, and that you'll come back next week. And thank you both, Cassandra and Molly, for joining me.
It was great. Thank you, Marcy.